Today, I want to share with you my social media awards for churches in 2020. These are the pastors, ministries, and churches that I think are leading the way for the rest of us on social. And this is a diverse list. You'll find bigger churches, smaller churches, churches with varying theological distinctives. And if you're looking for inspiration or fresh ideas, they most certainly are worth a follow. So let's dive in. Well, hey there, I'm Brady Shearer from Pro Church Tools, and if we're just meeting for the very first time, this channel is all about helping you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. So please consider subscribing. You can also hit the little church bell to turn on notifications. We publish new videos every Tuesday and Thursday on this channel, and if you like this particular video, please give it a thumbs up. Now, a word of caution as we get started. One of the biggest problems I see churches encounter on social is blindly copying what other churches are doing. And let me be clear, I don't blame churches for this. In fact, it makes a lot of sense. The person in charge of social at your church probably isn't formally trained, right? They may not even have that much experience on social media, but still, they're thrust into the role because someone has to do it, right? And now the worship or youth pastor, church planter, or administrative assistant is in a tough spot. What should I be posting? And so often, one of the first things we do is we check out what other churches are doing. But this can be tricky because here's how social content strategies generally play out for churches. The massive churches with global influence use their pastors' sermons and lifestyle as the backbone of their social content. One step down from that, we've got the big churches, and they're using their in-person services and events as the backbone of their social content. And then there's the rest of us, the other 98% of churches, and what do? Well, we just end up copying what the first two are doing. Consider this. Elevation Church and Stephen Furtick are both doing excellent work on social media with their accounts, but both of their accounts on Instagram alone have more than 1 million followers. Now, let's be extremely liberal with an estimation here and say that Elevation has 100,000 unique people actually attend their church over the course of a month in person. What does that mean? Well, that means that still more than 90% of the people that follow them on Instagram don't actually attend their church. So now compare that to your church on social. Is your online audience made up of 90% of folks that don't attend your church? Probably not. So it doesn't make sense to approach social in the same strategic ways that Elevation does. Think about it this way. If I owned a small specialty coffee shop in my city, it wouldn't be wise for me to blindly look to Starbucks to see how they are making strategic decisions. We both serve coffee though, right? So it's the same? No, because they're a colossal chain with a global influence and I'm a specialty shop serving my neighborhood. Two entities that both serve coffee, yes, and yet we couldn't be more different from an organizational perspective. So to make things easy for you throughout this, I've broken out these churches into a list of different categories, and I'll try to be very clear when I'm suggesting you consider following a church's strategic efforts versus when I just think that a church is worth following for their designs and aesthetic. Because it's not that we can't find inspiration from churches that are different from us. Good design is pretty universal, so we shouldn't discount those leading the way for us on that front. But ascribing to their strategic approach may not be the best idea. So let's begin with the aforementioned Elevation Church, at Elevation Church on Instagram. If you're looking for design inspiration, the team at Elevation does an excellent job. You'll find most of the content they publish is related to their pastors' sermons, from video excerpts of messages to quote posts, and that may not be the best posting strategy for your church, but there's one recent post that I do think is applicable to all of us. Elevation is celebrating their 14th birthday in this post, and they do this by sharing before and after pics. And if you look at the engagement on this post compared to others from Elevation around the same time, this post has 2 to 3 times more likes than others, and that's because before and after photos are universally loved. Think about the 10-year transformation trend you may have seen at the beginning of January in 2020 as a new decade turned over. We love to look back and see how far we've come. And this doesn't have to be a 10-year thing either. In my experience, just posting a photo of your pastor on their birthday and having the church celebrate them is a virtual guaranteed win on social. Next up, we've got Youth Alive Queensland at Youth Alive QLD on Instagram. Naturally, this is a youth, young adult ministry, so if you really want to push the limits of design and get inspired by Gen Z, this is for you. You'll find some especially fun video content here, like one particular video where the host hits an unsuspecting passerby with a wrestling-inspired clothesline. Why? Well, why not? It's youth group. From there, let's look to Transformation Church at We Are Transformation on Instagram, another design aesthetic that I love. There's one recent post in particular that stands out to me. It's a slideshow with spray paint inspired graphics. There's bright colors, hand-drawn elements with impact font as the typeface. And who would have thought impact font could look so good? And yet, here we are. And then lastly, on the inspiration front, we've got Mosaic at Mosaic on Instagram. This is West Coast living and high fashion being paired with church social media design. It's unique and I'm a big fan of it. So that wraps up the churches that I'd suggest looking to for design inspiration. What about strategy? Well, let's start with a Catholic church out of Chicago. This is St. John Cantius Church at SJ Cantius on Facebook and Instagram. And their photography and imagery is quite stunning, but the strategy that I wanted to highlight that I think that we can all begin implementing is their use of long-form captions. There's a post from February 8th, which is the day each year in which the Catholic Church celebrates the feast day of St. Josephine, and it's a day of prayer for an end to human trafficking around the world. And what St. John Cantius Church has done here is use the caption space on social to teach about the story of St. Josephine and why this day is celebrated. And this is something that I'd like to see churches do more often. I mean, it's pretty commonplace to see a beautiful photo on social from a church highlighting ministry life, but it's often paired with a throwaway 2-sentence promo for an upcoming event or service. Swapping that out instead for a long-form caption dedicated to storytelling is a way to add so much more meaning to a social post. Next, let's take a look at Freedom Church, the Los Angeles area, at Freedom Church on Instagram. I really like their use of video on their social platforms, whether it's their pastors or folks in their church. You'll find plenty of talking head style videos with baked in captions, which is always a nice touch. And I also love that this church has fun on social. It really doesn't seem like their pastors take themselves too seriously, which is great. And you'll even find church-related memes on their feed. And look, in my experience, churches get way too uptight about what they broadcast on social. Sure, their pastors will make jokes in their messages and services, but post a funny meme on a Facebook page, and that crosses the line. And I think that we'd all do well to lighten up a bit in that respect, and Freedom Church is modeling that for us here, so kudos to them. Let's go to Life Church next, probably the biggest church in America. So why are they here on the strategy list? Well, because they do a number of things on social that I think any church can emulate. First, there's an ongoing segment called Behind the Message. You know, many churches will broadcast their message online through a live stream or a post after the fact, but Life Church goes a step further and creates native content specifically for social related to the message. The Behind the Message video segment pairs a host with their preaching pastor, and they talk about some of the key points of the message in a conversational format. Life Church also models one of my favorite social media strategies for churches, asking questions. On one recent post, they asked on Instagram, "How can we pray for you?" And they received more than 400 responses in the form of comments. And that's 10 times more comments than what they normally see if you look at other posts published around that same time from Life Church. And you know, Life Church is in a position where they don't need to do this, right? And I've had big churches straight up say to me, look, we are not using social media to interact with our audience. We want them to interact with our content, click our links. We're not trying to create a two-way dialogue here, though. That's not our goal for social. Life Church is going the other way. They're purposefully asking questions to create meaningful dialogue on social. Why? Well, because it aligns with their mission, even though it probably means more work for their team on social. And then as a side note, Life Church is one of the first churches to jump on TikTok because they're consistently experimenting and trying new things before the rest of us. So if for nothing else, they're worth following for that reason. Let's change gears now a bit and highlight two smaller churches. First up is Building 28 Church out of Clearwater, Florida at BLDG_28_church on Instagram and BLDG28 Church on Facebook. The diversity of posts on this church's feed is what impresses me the most. You'll find question posts where the church asks their audience, what's your favorite worship song right now? And they'll get 54 comment responses. They'll publish get to know you posts highlighting a person in their church where they ask them fun questions like, what's your favorite midnight snack? And they'll share playlists to accompany a new sermon series. And one of the hallmarks of a great social presence is diversity, because you want posts that drive clicks and posts that drive likes and posts that drive comments, and you need different kinds of posts to generate different kinds of engagement. And then lastly, let's look at Northwood Church, at We Are Northwood on Facebook. They're using the content we create at Nucleus Social, and they're integrating it with their own content they're creating as well. So you'll have a post of ours that they publish, a Bible-inspired list post perhaps, and then there's a question post like, where did you meet your significant other? And that post will drive 35 comments where real people in this church are sharing their stories with others and testimonies of how they met their partner. But then they're mixing that content in with photos of church life and ministry. And frankly, this is an ideal solution for many churches. Post when you can, what you can, and then use our content from Nucleus Social to fill in the gaps, because we're creating content every single day for your church that drives meaningful engagement, and it's diverse to make sure you're seeing engagement on all fronts as well. And if you want to download 30 of our best performing posts from Nucleus Social, you can just go to the link nucleus.social in your browser and start your 30-day free trial. There's no credit card required, and we'll even get you access to the Photoshop and After Effects source files of our posts as well, all for free. And then let's conclude by highlighting a trio of pastor-specific accounts. Each of these 3 pastors does an excellent job of sharing their personal life, and this is important because we are a social species and we connect best with other humans, not organizations. And so if your church has the bandwidth, putting effort behind your pastor's account instead of just your overall church account may be an effective approach for you. And if you're looking for inspiration again on that front, I'd recommend Rich Wilkerson Jr., pastor of VU Church in Miami. I'd recommend Craig Grichelle, pastor of Life Church. And specifically for Pastor Greg, this guy is embracing TikToks with his daughter and having so much fun looking silly online while he does it. Truly legend status. And then lastly, Mike Todd of Transformation Church. Mike is my single biggest recommended follow for pastors on social this year. He's operating on another level, and his willingness to be transparent is in a league all to its own. So big ups to him. And that will do it for the best churches, ministries, and pastors to follow on social in 2020. If I missed a person or a church that you'd love to see recognized, make sure to add it in the comments below. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this, consider subscribing. And again, thanks so much for your time.